All right, everybody. Welcome to this interview of the 11th Congressional District Republican candidates. My name is Patrick Kolbeck, former state senator out in the state of Michigan, the 7th District, and I have the honor tonight of interviewing former Congressman Kerry Bentivolio, and who's running to make sure that we get rid of our current Congresswoman, Haley Stevens. Kerry, welcome to this, I guess we can call it a podcast, but really it's just an interview conversation about your candidacy, and I want folks to have the opportunity to get to know you. So what do folks need to know about you?
Well, first of all, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it, especially coming from you. I'm a big fan, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity because, I discovered a couple days ago that I always buy a particular brand of shoes called Echo. And in fact, I'm wearing a pair now that the soles are pretty much given out from knocking on over 7,000 houses over the course of the last 3 years, visiting with constituents. And as you said, the correct way to pronounce it, this is my biggest problem when I'm walking out there and meeting people, is they can't pronounce my name correctly. So when you pronounce my name, you got to sing it when you say it. It's Bentivolio, like that. You got to sing it like you say.
Well, make sure you keep your soul when you get into Congress, okay?
Oh yeah, well I did do that. As you know, there were no scandals. There were no, we did the right thing. I always believed that my constituents believed in transparency, so I had a distinct honor of being rated second most transparent member of Congress. They also wanted us to cut wasteful government spending. I'm very proud of the fact that I scored 100% for cutting government waste. The year before that, I think I scored like 90%. And I said, well, what do I got to do to get 100%? And we did that. And we were very successful in passing 3 pieces of legislation that benefited and protected people's rights rather than take them away. And the interesting thing now is we had a bill became part of a bigger bill called the Taiwan Travel Act, which was a shot over the bow of China because of what they are, well, now it's coming to light because 95% of our medicine is made in China. 95% of the PPE that we need for this country is manufactured in China. And my big thing was we got to bring back some of this manufacturing back to the United States. And my economic policy is summed up like this, generally speaking, is investment goes where it's welcome and stays where it's appreciated. So the United States, we've always been about business. We like to promote business because it helps create the American dream for a lot of people. Not everybody wants to be a multi-millionaire. Of course, in some cases, we'd like that opportunity at least, but most people, they're content with living their lives and fulfilling their American dream, having a nice house, a few toys to play with, vacations, and putting their kids in good schools. And that's what's very important. And our real wealth in this nation has always been what we produce, whether it's food or our products, like our automobiles, our planes, everything. And now if you look, we see almost everything you buy says made somewhere else. Well, why can't we have it made or return to our manufacturing and our production return to the United States? All we have to do is make sure that we welcome investment by making it easy and welcome investment and appreciate it by getting rid of some of these regulations that hamper business rather than promote business. Common sense regulation is a good thing. One of the most common sense regulations, for instance, is when you're in a store and there's an emergency and you want to leave the store, there's a panic bar on the door. That's a good regulation. It doesn't really cost the merchant or the business that much more money, and they do want to save lives. That's their best interest. But when you have to regulate a puddle of water that's on your property for 4 or 5 months out of the year and say it comes under the EPA or Water Resource Act or whatever it is, that's kind of ridiculous. So
okay. Well, tell everybody a little bit about your family. Obviously, I know a lot of your family members, but maybe
Yes,
you
you
can
do.
get some insight into that and let them know how they feel about you running for Congress.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Because
a good
I'm as
question.
somebody who's ran for office before, you don't have for the family, it gets a little dicey.
Uh, well, my wife's now retired after, I think, 43 years as an RN at Providence Hospital. Now, she worked there when we were married, and we're still married, of course, after 43 years. And she's going through retirement. This is a whole new life for her, being retired. Uh, we
So
have
that
two
means that
children.
she's a free campaign manager. Is that the way it works?
What's that?
That means she's the free campaign manager now. Is that how it works?
Yeah, yeah, she's always been one of my biggest critics. For instance, I came home and I showed her a list of 8 members of Congress who scored 100% for cutting government waste, as I said earlier. And I showed her the list. I said, look, out of 435 members of Congress, only 8 got 100% for cutting government waste. And your husband, me, is at the top of the list. And she said, that's because they printed that list alphabetically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's the biggest critic. So we have 2 children. One lives in Colorado. He's married to a doctor, and he works for Vail Corporation as a full-time employee. And my daughter, of course, Kristen, as you know very well, is co-campaign manager for our campaign. And she has 4 wonderful grandchildren who are going to be at my house this evening. I'm looking forward to that. They always like to go to our house because I discovered after 43 years of living with the woman, of my dreams, right, is that she's a really good cook. And I said, why haven't you done this all these years? And she says, well, I've been busy, I'm working, and so on and so forth. And my grandkids just think she's the greatest cook in the world. I agree with them. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, what are the top 3 principles that you're going to use to guide every decision that you make when you're in Congress?
Well, number one, we have a number 1 rule. It's always been a rule, is never lie under any circumstances intentionally. Now, you could be told something you believe to be true and you pass it on. Somebody might accuse you of lying. But if we find out that's the case and it's not true, we'll make the correction, whatever. We'll make the apology, so on and so forth. Okay. Because, as you know, as a former state senator, sometimes you're given bad information you believe to be true. So number 1 rule is never lie. Number 2 is try not to be a hypocrite, which seems to be a bad pandemic in this country. Hypocrisy disease. I've stated that for the last 5 years. And we have a couple pledges. When I was a congressman, and I printed it out, and I joined Thomas Massie, Tom McClintock from California, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul from Kentucky, and Pat Tomey. And as you can see, we printed it out on the page, and I'm at the top of the list. And this is the pledge we signed many years ago, and this has always been my guiding principle since 2010 when I ran for state senate and lost to a gentleman by the name of Mike Kowal. And it says, I pledge to the citizens of this state and to the American people that as their elected representative, I will work to restore liberty, not restrict it, shrink government, not expand it, reduce taxes, not raise them, abolish programs, not create them, promote the freedom and independence of citizens, not the interference of government in their lives, and observe the limited enumerated powers of our Constitution, not ignore them. And that's called the Republican Liberty Caucus Pledge, right there. And I've signed it all the time. And when I was a congressman, every legislative aide I had this on their desk. So when we divided it up, what issues they became experts in, and sometimes they would advise me on how to vote for a bill. And this was always been their guiding principle. So we don't vote for bills we tend not to vote for bills. You're not always right, but you do your best. If it doesn't meet these principles, I don't vote for it. And my record is pretty much like that. That's how you get 100% score for cutting government waste, rated second most transparent, and get 3 bills passed because you're upfront and honest. I told Speaker Boehner, first time I met him privately, is I told him I'd never lie to him, never surprise him, never tarnish the office. I wouldn't vote for a debt ceiling increase. That's a standalone bill. And without getting cut in government spending. And I wouldn't vote for an omnibus bill. At the time, I thought it was a multiple issue bill because I was new at the job and didn't understand what an omnibus bill was too much. That's the name they apply to it. So I have never violated any of those, including a lot of people, well, you voted to raise the debt ceiling. Not really. I voted for a CR the first 3 months I was there, which is a continuing resolution, which does in fact raise the debt ceiling because it's spending 37 cents at the time for every dollar the government spent was actually borrowed money. So yeah, we raise the debt ceiling anytime we spend money in Congress. So, but in exchange for that, we got a 3% cut in government spending, which is the largest cut in government spending in the history of this country, called a sequester. And I feel justified. That was the right thing to do because I would be more than happy to give the government a little extra money for next 3 months, as long as I get 3% cut in government spending for the rest of the year, actually for 2 years, which was a good exchange, I think. And if people knew exactly how it's done, they would appreciate that too, and they'd probably do the same thing.
So what are your positions on life in the womb?
Oh, I'm 100% right to life. I spoke on the floor of Congress about Dr. Grosnell, the baby butcher, and called out the press for their hypocrisy, and that's available on YouTube. If you want to see that, it's a very passionate speech because I was very angry at the hypocrisy of the liberal press. I also protested Planned Parenthood at Cobo Hall with my fellow Right to Lifers. I protested in Brighton, Planned Parenthood in the past.
Just clarity for everybody. I mean, are there any exceptions to your policy on life?
Only in the event mother's life is in danger.
Yeah.
That's the only exception I can make.
Okay.
And what we also have to understand something. You know, there's always that small percentage of people who will say, what about the, you know, or what about cases of rape and incest? Okay. Very touchy thing. Understand, we have to provide, we should be able to provide counseling for the victim, but I don't think we should kill an innocent child because the father's a felon. And we have to do everything we can to help the woman who's under those circumstances, including putting that the perpetrator of that crime in prison for a very, very long time. I'm a right to life, and that includes a lot of things, even though I am a soldier, former soldier, a combat veteran. Right to life is very important to me. I've seen what the communists do to women in mountain yards in Vietnam, and that stuck with me. I was 18 years old at the time. That's a story I really don't want to tell people publicly, but it kind of stuck in my mind. And every time I hear about an abortion, I think of something the results of communist atrocities in Vietnam. So I'm 100% right to life, except in the event the mother's life is in danger.
Okay. On the Second Amendment, what's your position in regards to the Second Amendment and gun control laws?
Well, I'm a big fan of gun control, as long as it means my legs are shoulder width apart. I have a firm grip, but I think trigger squeeze, sight, picture, and breathing have something to do with it. I carried an M16, which is, you know, the automatic version of an AR-15. When I was 18 years old as a combat infantryman in Vietnam, where at 18 years old I was promoted to sergeant. And the National Guard has spent 27 years, full and part-time soldier, where I became the master gunner and a certified MOUT instructor. We call it SWAT, but in the military it's called MOUT, Mobile Operations Urban Terrain. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I know my gun shop owner within a couple miles of my house on a first name basis, and most of the, actually all the salesmen there. Yeah, I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I'm a life member of the NRA, and I haven't paid my dues in the last couple of years, but I was used to be a member of Gun Owners of America.
Okay.
And I'm not, I just haven't paid my dues lately, but
What's your position
I was endorsed by them in the past.
What's your position on red flag laws?
Totally ridiculous. I mean, who's going to determine who's crazy? I mean, if you ask me, you know, there's.
Well, actually, for the viewers' edification here, maybe you can go through what red flag laws are and why you're concerned about it.
Well, if somebody complains or sees it doesn't agree with you and your behavior, they're going to call the police and say that you're a danger to society and so on and so forth. And they'll come and confiscate your firearms without using due process. And due process is a constitutional right. If you are, of course, deemed to be insane or confined to a mental institution or have threatened somebody in the past, and that's proven, you should have your firearms taken away, of course, because you're a threat. But you can't do that without due process of law, and you can't just arbitrarily accuse somebody of a crime because you don't like them. And if that was the case, no Democrat would be allowed to own a firearm because some people considered being a Democrat a mental illness.
All right, well, let's go off the beaten path, the policy stuff for just a second, and just kind of want to give people a chance to get to know who you are. So what are your top 3 favorite movies of all time?
Secondhand Lions.
Yeah.
I love that movie. It's really a great movie. And let's see, the top 3 movies. Okay, I'm really a big fan of George C. Scott in the movie Patton.
Yeah.
Pretty, and there's another one too. Oh shucks. It's hard because there's quite a few movies I really enjoy. What's a movie with Tom Hanks where he, he walks across or runs across the nation, and it's kind of a Forrest Gump. I enjoy Forrest Gump because I think there's a little bit of Forrest Gump in all of us.
All right. Well, how about your 3 favorite books?
Oh, number 1 is the Bible, of course, and that's a daily reading. And the next one is I'm a big fan of Milton's Paradise Lost. I've probably read that 4 times. Still don't understand it completely.
Yeah.
And the other one is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay. Where do you get your news from?
I certainly, mostly the internet. Now I know I've seen the hypocrisy of the press. I became a big fan of Donald Trump's when I heard he called out the press for being fake news. And I have been a victim of fake press, hyper what do you want to call it? The hypocrisy, misinformation, biased information, and they know, they're trying to sell newspapers. I have no respect for a lot of the newspapers, especially we now see as we're calling the liberal press. I'm very glad to see people are waking up to how biased and bigoted actually the press is.
So when you say you get news online, from what websites do you think you visit the most?
Oh, probably. Well, actually, it comes on my phone, and I couldn't honestly tell you because I go through it. I'm probably.
You got an app that you use?
Yeah, I've got probably 16 or more apps that send me news, and I can't always. I mean, I could grab my phone here and look it up, and I just point it out. I also get. What I get is a summary. I was a member of the former Intelligence Officers Association, and some of these guys, when they retire, they still are in the habit of gathering data. So what they do is they read newspaper articles from all over the world. So I'll get newspaper articles on the same story from the Philippines, from Japan, from France, from Italy, and they're all read by these former intelligence officers, and they're converted to English and on a variety of subjects that I have expressed an interest, and I get almost a daily report from them. And so I'll read maybe this, 5 different reporters on a particular subject, on one particular happening or one event. And I read that, and it comes, and they reference, what newspaper it comes from, and the country, of course, and the date. So I read that almost every morning. I get that about 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's what I do. I get up, I have my 2 cups of coffee and my nicotine fix, of course, and I'll go through those summaries and read them. As an English teacher, I was a speed reader, so I can go through this stuff pretty quick. Problem I'm having is I don't always remember the actual, facts. Like you probably, like doctors and nurses, they spend a lot of time in memorization. Okay, I didn't. I was more analytical, reading what they said and coming up with my own conclusions and questions. So I'm not one for remembering exactly what somebody said or something like that, but I synthesize that information and come up with my own opinions and whatnot.
So what social media accounts do you have?
Facebook, is it MeWe now? And the campaign uses Twitter. I don't use Twitter. I don't particularly like it. I think it's controlled by the liberal media. So I'm kind of avoiding it. My campaign uses it. My staff uses it. Instagram, I think we're on. But mostly it's Facebook and my, my Gmail account. Because
So do you
I'm probably
personally on any of those accounts, or is it mostly your staff?
Say again?
Do you do most of the posts on there, or is it mostly your staff?
On Facebook, I do I have a personal page.
Yeah.
And a Honorable Carrie Bentivolio page, and the Honorable Carrie Bentivolio page, of course, we're very careful what we put on there because that's official stuff. Then I have a personal Facebook page, which I basically told the staff, hands off, this is me. I'm going to post things on there. If you don't like it, tough. I think I've actually threatened Facebook because they said if I reach a certain amount of friends, I'm not allowed to have any more friends. And I told them, yeah, you will let that happen. So I think combined in all my Facebook pages, and I have 4, I think, we have over 15,000 friends.
Okay.
So I'm pretty impressed.
As a
Hope they vote.
elected official, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because, well, I'll let you fill in the blanks on it, but do you block others on social media, and why or why not?
Okay, yes. On my personal page especially, this is my page. I get to censor because it's my page.
Yeah.
I didn't used to do that.
Yeah.
And we get people, using foul language and being very disrespectful, including threats and things like that. You know what? I don't have time for that. So at this point, we're just going to block them if they can't make an intelligent argument or ask an intelligent question. We're going to block them. I have a right to do that. It's my page. Just like you step on my property and you're going to damage it or something like that, you're trespassing. I'm sorry, you need to leave, right?
Yeah, I should remember President Reagan once saying, "I paid for this microphone." Now, and as an excuse for him getting a chance to opine on different topics. So,
yeah.
So, who are your top 3 campaign donors today?
Oh, shucks. You'd see that on my Facebook or my FEC report. I think I have Arlene Allen. She's a top one, and we have, we've got a lot of people that donated a lot of money to our campaign. We'd like to have more, of course, but people are waking up and realizing that Kerry's the best choice. He's got the experience. He did the right thing. He's faced the abuse and the assaults of the left and the right, and he's still standing because it's persevere. It's what it's about. We have to persevere. We have to fight this socialist government or the socialist ideology that's infecting our country. We have to do this. Look, they're telling us it's okay to practice your religion as long as you're not a Christian or a Jew. It's okay to freedom of speech as long as you agree with what we say. You can't have guns, and now they're because the police should have guns, but now we don't want the police around. I mean, this hypocrisy is actually, that's the biggest pandemic facing this country. And I got sad news for everybody out there. The mask will not protect you from hypocrisy disease. You need to read the Constitution. You need to read the Bible, and you have to get engaged. And one of the things you should really do is try to memorize, which I'm having a hard time doing, the Declaration of Independence. I would love for people to be able to recite the Declaration of Independence and understand exactly what the Constitution says. I used to teach the subject as a school teacher, and I need to reference, and go back and review it often as well, because it's a confusing world out there. So did I answer your question?
Yeah. So
Okay.
now we're going to get into some other things. What's the first thing you do every morning?
Every morning,
Mhm.
read my worldwide news summary and have a cup of coffee and a nicotine fix. I'm still addicted.
All
You
right.
know,
Now, how important is your faith to you?
I'm sorry?
How important is your faith to you?
How important is my faith?
Is your faith to you?
My faith. This.
Faith, F-A, yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
faith.
Yeah.
F-A-I-T-H.
Yep.
Number one, it's God, family, country, in that order, sir.
Okay.
I go to church, try to go to church on a regular basis. I'm on the security team there. I protect the faithful. My job is, as long as you have under the Constitution, you have a right to practice your faith, your religion, and no government can interfere in that. Now, I will do that. I will protect your right to practice your faith as long as you are what I like to call peacefully practicing your life or your faith. If you try to violate somebody else's right to practice their faith, I got news for you. I'm going to be between you and them, and I'll probably be holding my Glock, because you do not harm people who are innocently practicing their faith.
All right.
So,
Who's your favorite founding father and why?
I'm sorry?
Who's your favorite founding father and why?
Thomas Jefferson. I'm a Jeffersonian to a certain degree. There's always exceptions. The number one reason is, Thomas Jefferson was a tinkerer of a lot of things. We have a small farm where we raise a hobby farm where we raise pigs, chickens, ducks, turkeys. I do have a lot of projects. We have bees. I have a vineyard. We can our own food to a large degree as a family thing. So we get the family together real soon when we can get out and get some strawberries. Wife makes terrific strawberry jam. So the family goes out and we'll pick the strawberries, and the kids and I, the grandkids, and we'll all sit at the table and get it ready for grandma to make her jam. And when we harvest our grapes, we invite a lot of friends over with their kids, and the kids will help with the adults picking the grapes, stopping the wine with their feet and turning their feet red. And then we the red wine makes better vinegar than it does wine. The white's pretty good, but I still got about 4 or 5 cases because I'm not a big drinker. I don't drink, hardly at all. But it's nice to make your own wine.
I mean, you won't drink the Kool-Aid up in DC.
No. I always took bottled water.
All right. So what's the purpose of government?
The purpose of the government is to protect us from fraud.
Yeah.
It's pretty much to defend this country. It's outlined in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. Number 1 is to defend the borders of this country. And
okay. What does Article 1 cover in the Constitution?
Oh my goodness, we're talking about what we are allowed to fund, what we can spend money on with our federal dollars, which is unfortunately not the case. Defend, provide an army and a navy, of course, Article 1, Section 8. There's the Commerce Clause, which the lawyers have expanded other than its original intent. Let's see, and there's a whole list. The government is responsible for weights and measures, regulating, standardizing things like the width of a railroad track, or how long a foot is and what a pound actually is.
What branch of government does Article 1 cover?
Print money? What?
What branch of government does Article 1 cover?
Article 1, that's Chuck's. I'd have to reference that, but I'm pretty sure it's the Congress.
Yep. And what does Article 2 in the Constitution cover?
I'm pretty sure that's Chuck's. It's got to be one of the others. One of the other two. So it's either I'm thinking that's got to be the executive branch. I'd have to go back
Yep.
and look.
And Article 3 then by default.
Yeah, of course,
Yep.
the judges and you know, here's the problem. And this is the problem we have with a lot of people. You know, I always believed that the three branches of government was designed for checks and balances, but the problem is the government now is writing the checks and we get the balances. They don't understand it. They should have taken my course.
So what do you believe are the top 3 seminal moments in American history which kind of define who we are as Americans?
Oh, Revolutionary War, of course,
Mhm.
the Civil War. And I like to think, and a lot of people will argue with me on this, but I don't think they understand it as well because most historians, they focus on like the Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War II. I like to say that it's the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and the Spanish-American War, because that was, that basically, that says a lot more. I could go into a 2-hour lecture on why I think the Spanish-American War was very important to this country, a defining moment, because it was our, you know, that expansion of what we call today as Americanism.
Okay, do you support the national popular vote movement?
National popular, no, absolutely not.
Okay, if you could make any changes to the U.S. Constitution, what would they be?
Oh, wow. I could go through a list here, but number one that pops in my mind that I'm wrestling with right now is that, you know, if the Congress holds somebody in contempt of court, or excuse me, contempt of Congress, the Congress has to rely on the Attorney General to enforce that contempt charge. Well, I think that if you are a federal employee and you're called to testify, and you fail to testify, or you're found lying and held in contempt of Congress, that Congress has the right, like a judge does when you are in contempt of court, to throw you in jail for 30 days. Now, what jail? Well, we don't have any jails. We don't no longer, we used to, but we don't have any jail cells in the basement of the Capitol. But we could throw you into the Washington, D.C. police common jail, right? We could do that. Now, on a second offense, you're brought in to testify, and as an employee of the federal government,
Hey,
you
Terry,
lie.
in the interest of time here, I just I
Okay.
want to get into some of the other priorities, but I get it. So it's dealing with just in a quick summary of what would the change be, and then we'll pop into.
We can actually enforce contempt charges by throwing people in jail for a limited period of time. And in the worst case scenario, we can take away we can fire them and take away their retirement benefits for contempt of court charges.
Okay, sorry. I just want to give you a chance to answer as many of these as possible.
I understand. I tend to be long-winded.
So what are the top 3 federal issues you will address as congressman for the 11th Congressional District?
I think we're going to focus on, of course, security of borders and bringing back manufacturing. But also I have a pet peeve is Read the Bills Act, which is sponsored in Congress first time. And we also need, it has a lot of implications to pass a bill that's single issue bills. So we can get rid of that pork and ice cream that Haley Pelosi Stevens, I think that's her middle name is Pelosi, like to put into the bills that Mr. or President Trump needs to help Americans. You have to, that's part of the deal. In order to pass a bill in Congress, you have to pay off the Democrats. And I think we need to eliminate that by having single issue bills. Each bill should be able to stand on its own merits.
That's the way the Michigan Constitution is written. What are the top federal policies that are out there that adversely impact state government or put constraints around the governance of individual states? So, in other words, a lot of folks, when they go up into the federal government, they may forget about who the people are that they represent back in the state. And a lot of the policies that are out there may actually, as a former state senator, I had to deal with implementing or finding ways to implement different federal policies that were kind of dictated to the states. Do do any of those policies jump out at you? And is that something that you'd want to address as Congressman?
Yeah, I was asked to be a when I was reelected, I was asked to be the chairman of a subcommittee on the education committee. Chairman Klein asked me to do that because I have a master's in education and 5 majors, and was a public, private, and charter school teacher. And he asked me to do that, and I told him, well, I don't think it would be a good idea because I'd like to get rid of the Department of Education. And
Yeah.
he says, well, when you figure out how to do that, let me know. I don't like the idea of the federal government stepping in, telling the states, because in the state constitution, we have a right, or we have to provide public education. If we have their money, why don't we just grant the money back to the states? Teachers don't lose any of the federal money. They still get paid. Whatever the state wants to do with it, it's up to them.
Okay, we've got about 5 more minutes to get through a few more of these things, and I want to give you a chance to put in kind of a closing statement there to the voters. So one of the issues that we're facing at the state right now deals with our governor's response to COVID-19. And frankly, our state senators and state representatives' response to COVID-19. What do you think that our state elected officials have done right, and what do you think that they've done wrong?
Okay, well, they should take an example from former colleague of mine in Congress, the governor of South Dakota. She seems to be handling it pretty correctly. And that's about pretty much what I'll say. Take a note there, Michigan, and look at Christie and how she's doing in South Dakota, and kind of follow her lead, because she is pretty much a natural leader.
Okay, so now we're getting into some situational ethics type questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
House appropriation bill contains blatant pork projects that benefit key members of the House leadership team. How would you respond? Do you vote in favor of the bill?
No, I haven't. The Read the Bills Act came from that. A constituent actually asked me why I voted for a particular bill, and I said it was a good bill, and he showed me a paragraph in it. And when I saw that paragraph, I would not have voted for that bill had it been in there in the one I read. I went back and asked about it, and they said they put that paragraph in the bill the morning of the vote. So I immediately sponsored a bill called Read the Bills Act, where I get 7 days to review it. And if they make one punctuation change or spelling of a word or a sentence correction, I get another 7 days, except in the act, in the event of a national emergency like the act of war. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of pork, and that's why I got a 100% score for cutting government waste, because I wouldn't vote for a bill that had a lot of pork in it. We did. Sometimes you don't even know. It's hidden way back there in the back of a bill. So that's why I don't vote for omnibus bills. I never have.
On which committees would you like to serve on, and why?
Okay, I think Defense Committee or Homeland Security, because I served in the military for 27 years. I'm enlisted. Was a senior enlisted soldier, so I know there's a perspective of the senior enlisted soldier we need in the department or the Defense Committee, National Defense. And the other one is I really enjoyed, for my own pleasure, Oversight and Government Reform, because you get to go after these corrupt politicians as well as government employees, and I really like beating them up and watching them squirm in their seats. That was I'm sorry, but I do not like corruption in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, another member of the Republican House caucus is blocking the movement of your most important piece of legislation. How do you respond?
In the case of the Safe and Secure Federal website that actually happened, Homeland Security said they had jurisdiction. It already passed the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and Boehner said it had a problem. And one of my colleagues from Michigan held it up as a favor to a constituent who donated a lot of money, because they wanted to send out a flyer that benefited them and didn't say nice things about me. And if that bill passed, which it eventually did, but anyway, what I did was I called in the Chief of Staff for Homeland Security and the Chief of Staff for the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. These are staff employees, they're not members of Congress. And I read them the Riot Act and told them what I was going to do. And the next day it came to the floor for a vote, and it passed the House with 100% bipartisan support. I know how the game is played. I know what to look for. They have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. Most of them are lawyers, so that's how they operate, right? And this is what I learned quickly. I mean, I passed my first bill within 3 months of taking office because I had a good reputation. I was a man of my word, and people knew that they were, if they made a good argument, they could probably get me on their team, as long as it followed those principles that I outlined in the Republican Liberty Caucus pledge.
Okay, well, in response to this COVID-19 epidemic, a lot of people are putting a lot of hope into vaccines, and there's concerns that a lot of folks will be told that you need to be vaccinated as a condition of employment, or as a condition of going to school, or as a condition of moving to and fro, getting on an airplane, whatever the case may be. What's your position on mandatory vaccinations?
Well, I was endorsed the last time around by Michigan for Vaccine Choice. My wife's a nurse, 43 years. She's very, she understands what's going on. I've done a lot of research. I've been in a lot of seminars. Investigated pro and con as a military soldier. I was under forced vaccination on numerous occasions. And I saw the results of in the military. One of the things I suspect and cannot prove because of the, the deep state, is that a lot of soldiers are suffering from PTSD, as well as some suicidal tendencies because of some medication they have taken. There's no, at this present time, there's no quality control checks. You can't sue a manufacturer if you get a bad batch, for instance. You have to go through a special court. We actually pay for that court when we pay our doctor's bill for that vaccination. I don't believe any government or any person can force somebody to have a vaccination. And people should be well aware. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that you should have a choice and be well educated on the vaccinations. I have an opponent that says that mandatory vaccinations, he supports mandatory vaccinations, and pharmaceutical companies have the right to charge you or cancel your insurance, or charge you more or cancel your insurance if you don't get vaccinations. I don't think that's, if that's what they're going to require, then they should be held liable in the event you have an allergic reaction or you suffer vaccine injury. Okay. If they're making it mandatory, they should also be held liable for that.
All right, we're almost wrapping up here, so.
Okay. Did I answer all your questions? Do you have more?
I've got like 3 pages of them, but we're kind of, I'm just, in the interest of time, I'm going over a few of the more detailed ones. So okay. What's your position on contact tracing? So a lot of people are pushing this as a way to mitigate the spread of the disease.
Well, HR 666 has been taken off, and it's been inserted in the HEROES Act. So I would not, if I was in Congress right now, as nice as the title is, the HEROES Act, and all the good things it does, they have inserted this TRACE Act, and I don't think reminds me of the red flag laws for firearms. Come on, what are we back in Salem, hanging witches, accusing people of witchcraft because they're suspected of something that's doesn't agree with them. It's crazy.
Okay, there's been a big push by a lot of people in federal government right now to push the deployment of 5G infrastructure. Are you in support of that? Are you opposed? What's your position?
I'm right now very much involved in with some other people doing an investigation on it may not, a lot of people are saying it affects their health, and I understand that, and I'm listening. But I'm also concerned that how it affects other things on Earth. For instance, we have a big problem with apiaries. Bees are dying. There's a lot of things affecting bees. You'd think, well, that's, what's bees, right? Well, it does, because if bees are affected by these airwaves and causing some distress or adding to the distress of bees, we have some serious problems, and it means that even people are going to be affected by the 5G. All those airwaves going through the air. The Army has and they invented a device that actually puts a microwave on a house or a building, and it heats the building up. You don't see the waves, but you feel the heat. And the people in the building, if they're the enemy combatants, they'll come running out of the building because their insides and everything is cooking. The Army has not using it because but this is some of the things we have to look at. Just because it's unseen does not mean it doesn't hurt us.
Okay.
Kind of like that virus, right?
Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us tonight. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to wrap things up and make a final appeal to voters.
Well, thank you again for giving me the opportunity and meet with all your constituents who watch this video. The most important thing that I stress is take a look at our record and forget about a lot of hype that's out there. We get it. We're like Donald Trump. We're fighting the hypocrisy of the left and the right. There's a lot of Bloomberg Republicans out there that don't like good conservatives. If you don't like cutting government waste, and you don't like transparency in government, and you don't like an effective congressman, and you don't like somebody who supports religious freedom, right to life, the Second Amendment Constitution, you should vote for somebody else, because I'm not your guy. But if you do support those things like transparency, cutting government waste, being an effective congressman, truth, and integrity, and right to life, Second Amendment, then I'm going to hit the ground running, because this time I'm not going to wait 3 months to pass my first bill. We're going to get there, and we're going to kick butt and take names, because our country is falling apart. Seriously.
Well, thank you very much.
We need a warrior. I'm the guy.
Thank you very much for joining us. And
Thanks, Patrick.
we're going to wrap this up, and the recording is going to be available on YouTube for folks to go off and take a peek at. So I'm going to